better level and cover more aspects. So now let me introduce to you the next presenter, Una Ile. She comes from the Latvian University of Agriculture. She's a lecturer there, and she has defended the doctoral thesis on the quality of the courtyards. Hello, everyone. What I'm going to present to you today is a research that I conducted in between 2008 2012. So I'm going to focus on the quality of the courtyards in Latvian cities. Before I started the research, I studied the theory and other relevant research conducted before me. And here you can see the authors, the scientists, researchers who have conducted research on the global scale on this topic, as well as some of the local researchers, Latvian researchers, who have researched into the same topic. So the objective of the research was to analyze the courtyard space and its quality in Latvian cities. And here you can see the areas that I studied or researched. So I was researching indeed the quality of environment or the space in the courtyards of Latvian cities. For you to understand the scale or the scope of the research, I was focusing on the urban and municipal planning documents, and I was studying master or general master plans. And here you can see Solitude, Imanta, for example, and other areas, similar areas, both in Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. So for you to better understand for me to better understand the structure, I created a layout scheme, and here in green, the circle marks the factors that you can attribute to the environment and the factors that have no influence. So this is the way I analyzed these areas. So research consisted of three main blocks. So I conducted a research of the Baltic Sea countries. I conducted a comparative analysis of these courtyards. Then the next level, or the next block, was the Baltic level, and I researched 30 large-scale courtyards in specific cities: Pärnu, Jelgava, and Šiauliai. Those cities were chosen because they had some similar traits in terms of size and so on and so forth. And then I analyzed the Latvian cities, and then analyzed altogether 5 cities, and in each city I chose 10 different courtyards, and I had specific criteria to categorize these courtyards in order to arrive at comparable results.
I also carried out social research and engaged expert groups from both Latvia as well as abroad, but you will see this in greater detail in the upcoming slides. What are the problems? Why did I start to address this issue? This is because the vast majority of us live in these types of regions or dwelling spaces. And being an architect, I was interested in starting to research, study, and analyze these matters. We know that such courtyards have high flows of transport, and means of transport that are parked on almost all possible locations, regardless of whether this is ethical towards neighbors or the environment, and so on and so forth. So parking is witnessed in both green spaces and areas and elsewhere. The vast majority of the courtyards I analyzed, I noticed that this representational zone was lost. During the course of time. For example, when a young mother comes out of the building, she basically has no place to arrange herself for a walk, because there's everything in the front, for example, cars. The poorest or the worst thing about all of this is the recreational zones and children's playgrounds. Some people wish to do sports and then they try to arrange something for themselves. For example, this is one image of a courtyard from Jelgava. Another problem here is the proportion and the scaling of wind exists. The zones for playing are not sufficient. Children have to think of how they can arrange their free time. There's nothing that can keep them in one place and play one types of games. Another problem is the Aizkraukle funeral office, which is actually located in a courtyard. This is a completely inappropriate use. Another thing is that inhabitants try to arrange greenery for themselves, and then they try to arrange the things that they find somewhere. And these might take the shapes of tires and so on and so forth, or plastic elements, which are not very environmentally friendly. And then again, there are unfinished buildings, which also shed a grim light on the entire block. And finally, another problem is that the inhabitants of apartments wish to start their own businesses, and then they start up various types of small shops. And this immediately entails additional functions and loads for the courtyards, entailing such problems as, say, delivery of goods and flow of vehicles, and so on. Now, returning back to the criteria, I would like to mention the results regarding the Baltic Sea, the state of courtyards in the Baltic Sea region. But I'm not going to go into greater detail with this. Further on, what you see here are the results regarding the Latvian towns and cities. The state is slightly better. There were places that were in a good, average condition and in poor condition. According to the poll that I conducted, the inhabitants characterize the courtyards as partly sufficient or insufficient. What you see here are the results regarding this. Now, what you can see here are the assessments of respondents. What are the characteristics of the outdoor space? Is the functionality? What is the general characteristic? And in this diagram, what you see is the opinions of experts from Latvia and from the foreign experts regarding the transportation, the busyness of transport, the greenery, and other matters. Now, as for the expert group and the problems, these diagrams identify the potential for the future, the areas for development, and so on. So according to all of the data I acquired during my study, I built a functional scheme. And in the future, when architects or renovators, when they tackle these types of territories, they could consider all of the aspects that were outlined here. I wanted to finish with a couple of examples to illustrate what kind of the outdoor spaces could be. I would like to mention a couple of examples regarding Scandinavian countries. And we have acquired some data from Valery Nefredo. He's a professor from the Russian Federation. So we were able to acquire quite an extensive visual information which speaks volumes for the fact and evidences the fact that these areas can be developed in a much more pleasant and interesting way, because we have to remember that the weather conditions in Scandinavian countries are quite alike the ones that we witness here, and sometimes they're even harsher. So there's no reason to think that we wouldn't be able to achieve the same. I would like to mention a couple of positive developments. For example, the great cleanup where we can engage inhabitants and conduct common activities in order to rephrase, refurbish, and develop